You're listening to a Roddenberry podcast.
Well, it's about that time. We hit the end of the week. Thank you, everybody who joins us every day. Or, you know what, if you skip around, maybe you binge watch. I don't know how you take and engage, but I'm glad that you're watching it and engaging with us. I'm John Champion.
And I'm Norman Lau. And just as we do on Engage, every single Engage, we read a comment, we engage with you, and we'll see what the email has in store for us, whether it's complimentary, whether it's critical, whether it's somewhere in between, whether it's thought provoking, but it's definitely going to be engaging. And I think we have one that is going to be definitely engaging for today.
Yeah. Okay. So like I said before, in real time of us doing Mission Log, we're at the very end. We just finished DS9, so there's a lot of follow up email about that. We broke rank yesterday. Had to take a little diversion, talk about Prodigy for a moment. But yeah, here we are. We're back. We're back talking about DS9 and some of those interesting and creative moral decisions that get made on that show. So Norman, what do we have today?
So this is from Philip. Hello, good people. I write to you to offer some perspective on the deserved haranguing of Sisko with regards to his moral failures in subsequent lectures. However, while I don't run a space station, I run a large healthcare organization with many departments and many individuals providing important and often life-saving services. As their leader, I have made poor decisions and judgment calls through the years, in addition to those I have been proud of. When I hear the outrage regarding Ben iterating expected standards, I say out loud to you both, what alternative does he have? Should he no longer have the standards he hoped he could achieve and let his staff go forward with whatever decisions they see fit? Or relinquish the role and mission as the leader of the space station? We can be frail at times as leaders, but the key is not to then abandon the standard. Thank you both for your insightful conversations and allowance on further opinions.
Uh, that's really good, and I will admit, I wrote back to Philip just very, very quickly and without the nuance that this deserves. So definitely wanted to get it in this week, and this will probably be the kind of thing that could kick off a much longer, a much broader conversation. But the more I think about it, I like that he, well, first of all, I love that he says the deserved
Haranguing.
ranking of Sisko that we give. So yeah, because that's what we do. Mission Log is there to identify and discuss the morals, meanings, messages being explored in episodes of Star Trek.
And remember,
And
we only harangue the haranguable.
that's right. That's right. Yeah. And having an imperfect leader is, I think, what makes it makes for good drama and it makes for good Star Trek. And if you go back and I particularly like, there was a conversation that I had with Ken in our coverage of Star Trek Six, talking about Captain Kirk, and it became this really interesting question of, can you have a character who is so unassailable as Kirk, but then give him this fatal flaw like his racism? Like, what does that do? Well, what it does to me is it says you can have an imperfection, but then the important part of the drama is facing and overcoming that shortcoming, recognizing it and getting past it. Um, so we're talking about Sisko here, who has made some bad decisions, and then you and I, Norman, will point out how he will then, with that, practically in the next scene, will just come up and spout off some, you know, Starfleet regulation or moral principle that must be adhered to, or whatever, and just go,
Right.
well, wait a minute, isn't that the guy who just hid evidence about his own wrongdoing? How can we take that seriously? So Philip is pointing out this really interesting thing. What do you do then as a leader if you are the one who has made the mistake, made the questionable decision? Do you just abandon the principle because you no longer have that moral authority? That's a great question. And I do want to say, like, the one thing that I think about right now in our current state of politics and our state of politics for a very long time is that you rarely, if ever, see a person in power admit to a mistake. And I think that is the biggest moral failing of all when it comes to our leaders, because we expect some sort of unachievable standard. And then those rare times that you do get an admission of a mistake, genuine and heartfelt and understood admission of a failing, I think it actually allows us as people being led to recognize that humanity and say, oh, wait, now I'm even more willing to, at least it does for me, I'm more willing to hear what you have to say
Mhm.
because I know that you understand the principle at stake there as well. Um, and I think for me and you, Norman, without putting words in your mouth, because I'm curious to hear what you have to say about this too, um, the thing that we wanted out of Cisco at any point is that admission just to say, I made mistakes.
Mhm.
I made terrible mistakes and I will have to pay for them in one way or another. You know,
Mhm.
if there was a conversation with that, we even talked about it in extreme measures, you know, where you can spout a principle as much as you want, but if you're just there saying like, nope, I'm here to be your moral guide, but we're not buying it, you know,
Yeah.
what do you think?
This brings me back to something I really loved. Tom Hanks's character in Saving Private Ryan, Captain Hillard. They're marching through some marshlands, you know, from one point to another, and he said to his unit, "I don't complain down. I don't complain up. I only complain down." You know, or
Uh,
something to that
uh-huh,
effect. Because
uh-huh.
he's like, "I don't have to complain to you. You can't do anything to help me. You know, my unit. I can only complain up to the people who can actually do something for me." So very much like Cisco, he's not going to admit his failings to those in his command that are, you know, his officers. There's nothing
Mm-hmm,
for them to do for him. Say
mm-hmm,
Admiral Ross, of course, because Admiral Ross is a superior officer. Other captains, possibly because they're peers. Because we never had the conversation, or never saw Cisco have the conversation where he wanted at any point in time to confront the crimes that he admitted to in the Pale Moonlight. I think what would satisfy us, John, and would satisfy a lot of other people, if when he was towing the line and holding the standard, as Phil's saying,
mm-hmm,
and not shirking from his responsibilities because he gave up on his principles, we don't want Cisco to give up on his principles. We don't want him to be a hypocrite either. So if there were a scene or two where he confronted what he did in the Pale Moonlight to someone who can keep his confession off the record, like a counselor,
mm-hmm.
then at least he would say, I can't believe what I did. I had to, but somewhere along the lines, I will hold myself accountable for the crimes that I admitted to be an associate of, you know, or an accessory after the fact. He said it in the Pale Moonlight. I committed crimes. I covered up murders. I was an accessory to other murders. It's not that he knows he didn't do it.
Yeah.
You know, he did it. He just has to be held accountable for it. And that is a troubling string of other instances where other officers of his also did the same thing without being held to consequences.
Yeah.
So where where the problem is, I think, at least traditionally from Star Trek, we've seen our officers falter, we've seen them fall, we've seen them make mistakes. But at the same time, though, they learn and push through it by being able to be held accountable for the consequences of their actions.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said, Matt. And thank you again, Philip. And if you would like to be like Philip and send us a comment that will make our brains chew over it, Norman, what could they do?
Well, you can always send your comment that we can chew over or let your brain chew on them to Mission Log here at Roddenberry Entertainment on YouTube. You can always send it to us at missionlog at roddenberry.com. We want to hear your comments and we want to be able to answer like uh, all of your thoughts in the chat below, in the comments below. You can also find us on Facebook and Twitter at Mission Log Pod. And remember, we may engage with those comments on the air.